I'm Ashton Addison from EventChain for InvestmentPitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Illia Polosukhin, the co-founder of Near Protocol. Illia, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time to be here today.
Hey Ashton, thanks for inviting me.
I'm really excited to dive into Near Protocol. I know your team is working on some really interesting developments in the blockchain space right now, and I would love for you to kick it off just with a high-level overview and the focus of Near Protocol, and then we can dive into the details.
For sure, yeah. So high level, Near is a developer platform and ecosystem. And part of this platform is a smart contract blockchain protocol that is built to be sharded, scalable, really easy to use for developers and users. But overall, there's a lot more other components that we provide to developers, and actually the whole ecosystem that has been built around it.
Definitely. Thanks for that. And can you explain a little bit more on how the platform works for developers, how it's different than developers just working on, Ethereum ecosystem or some other blockchains?
For sure, yeah. So from the start, when we started, we have faced actually that it was pretty hard to come in as a new developer, even experienced developer, to Ethereum ecosystem, and because it uses a different language, it has a lot of kind of different tooling. The mindset is very different, and so our goal was to, among other things, to make that kind of an easy come in. So we are using kind of underlying components which are used across the industry. So one of the components called WebAssembly that's been developed by Google, Mozilla, Microsoft, and is powering right now pretty much every browser out there, and allows to run pretty much code in a safe environment. And so this gives ability for developers to write code in common languages that they're already familiar with, and then run them on blockchain. So that was kind of step one, and then really plugging it into different sites so that as a developer, you don't need to think completely differently, which what Ethereum is kind of forcing you, but you can kind of step by step start to bring some of the functionality of blockchain and Web3 to your applications.
That's great. And WebAssembly it's great to have development environments that are being used by major corporations already. Is the goal to, obviously there is a small amount of developers just working on blockchain that originally had to learn Solidity, a separate language, versus the amount of other languages that regular coders already know. Is it just to get other developers that are already coding in the languages that they're used to be able to just build on blockchain really easily?
So it's two sides. We definitely want a new wave of developers, right? And the easier the onboarding is, the more developers we can have, the easier it will be for them to try to get some first results. But the other side is actually by using those common languages, it allows us to reuse existing work done, right? So which means even the developers who can learn Solidity potentially, it's way faster for them to build something bigger as they can reuse existing code, right? This is why we have open source in the first place. And so an example of this is actually we took the code that runs Ethereum itself, so the Ethereum Virtual Machine, the code that runs Solidity, and we compiled it as a smart contract on Near. So the way we run EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine, on Near to support the developers who know Solidity is by just using that as a smart contract on Near. And this is just shows how powerful it is to reuse existing code.
Yeah, no, that's genius. And I think I was going to ask about Ethereum's coding and interoperability, or bringing developers that are back and forth, because the Ethereum Virtual Machine, that's where most of the development is on Ethereum right now. And I'm curious to know, if you're bringing over those developers, can the applications work beside each other, or is it totally isolated? And are you involved in blockchain interoperability as the system and the industry continues to grow out to be able to connect applications across blockchains?
Exactly, yeah. So interoperability is one of the key components. Actually, we just last week launched the connectivity to Ethereum, and this is the first trustless, fully generic connection between two blockchains, kind of of this two smart contract blockchains. And like for kind of the simpler way to say it is like a wire transfer between two blockchains, but it allows to send any information between them and in a trustless way, right? And so like this is the same properties that blockchains themselves have, but they usually only provide it within the blockchain itself. But now you can actually have it between blockchains. And so we build a protocol that allows to connect them. And this actually gives ability for developers and users to start using applications that span across multiple blockchains. And so Ethereum has shown a great success in kind of financial applications being the source of kind of issuing assets. At the same time, by its own success, because it has a limited capability and capacity, it pushed all the other more kind of richer application out, right? And so a lot of applications are looking for a new home or deciding to build from scratch, not on Ethereum, but somewhere else. They still want to have access to all those assets, to all those like kind of origin of the financial side. And so bridges like this allow to developers to build applications on Near and connect into this existing ecosystem. And actually even like from their perspective, those applications almost exist like on the other shard of the network, right? They can just call into them and get callbacks. They can pretty much kind of behave like if they were just another application in the ecosystem.
That's great. And you mentioned that there are a lot of projects that wanted to build on something more scalable, better, and more suited to their liking. And I know that there's a lot of development already going on Near protocol. And I'd love if you could touch on some of the major projects that are already building on Near protocol that people may or may not be familiar with.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's like few interesting ones that already launched that's been having good traction. One of them is in the financial, like two of them in financial space. One is just a regular kind of decentralized exchange using similar to Uniswap kind of automated market maker functionality called Ref Finance. And this will just allow the people who are bringing their assets from, let's say, Ethereum to exchange them and to participate in the economy while, doing this in like 1 second with 1 second finality and for a fraction of cent of transaction fee, which actually starts to be very close, if not better than centralized exchange, because you actually have like full decentralized settlement in 1 second. So we have also a prediction market built on top of Flux protocol called Pulse. And so this is the same idea that's been actually pitched on blockchain for past, I think, 6 years. That was one of the first ICOs, kind of the prediction markets. But it never actually worked on Ethereum because like Ethereum does not have a good kind of mechanics to support that. But with like fast-paced kind of transactions, with cheap transaction, you can actually create a really rich interface for people to start actually pretty much betting on different outcomes, right? It can be betting on outcomes of a sporting event. It can be betting on outcome of a financial event. It can be betting on an outcome of even social thing, right? Will somebody say something, right? Or like how many times Biden will say something at the next, talk. So you can actually have like this interesting experiences, and like you do need to support it way more, and like the transaction needs to be really cheap to like make it really engaging, exciting. And the third one I want to mention is Paras. It's actually a digital cards, like pretty much non-fungible tokens that became really popular recently. And one of the interesting things is it's kind of where on Ethereum, because of high transaction fees, the only people who participate right now are just like, millions of dollars worth of NFT, right? Like the people who are doing it are like just really top artists. On Paras, because of really low fees, we have kind of a long tail of digital artists who come in who are able to make money. They have a lot of Filipino artists as well who are actually like, maybe this is first like crypto income for them, and they starting to participate in this. And because it's cards, it's designed from scratch to be composable with other places, right? So the idea is not just to build kind of an inventory for collection, it's also to start using it in games and other like applications. And so this is really exciting because it kind of bootstraps this inventory to then start building games where you can use those cards as kind of different in-game items.
Definitely all interesting projects, Ilya. Prediction markets, NFTs, and decentralized exchanges, all three really great use cases, which all require quick settlement and low fees. And I think that those are going to have major improvements running on Near as opposed to Ethereum just currently in its current state. And I'm just curious about the protocol itself and how you achieved that low latency, low fees. Were you looking at the issues in the Ethereum 1.0, other blockchains, and did you revamp it from the start? And how did you get that really low cost, really fast, but also balancing decentralization and the other facets of blockchain when you were developing Near protocol?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from the start, so our background is kind of in a lot of decentralized computing. My co-founder is coming from a sharded database company called MemSQL. I worked at Google building decentralized systems for machine learning, distributed systems for machine learning. And we were pretty stunned actually by this, like in 2018, by the state of the development of what was in production back then. And we actually have started a video podcast ourselves where we were interviewing other protocols. So we actually have, I think, over 40 episodes now of interviewing everyone from, Ethereum itself, Cosmos, Polkadot, and all the other major protocols to understand exactly what they're trying to build, why they're doing it, like what is the trade-offs and everything. And so we built kind of almost like a knowledge base of approaches while also doing our own research, figuring out kind of what is the best way to do this trade-off. And this is for sure a trade-off. Like there's no like kind of silver bullet, but like from our perspective, the underlying system needs to be linearly scalable with demand. Right? This is what if you think of like Google or Amazon or any of these companies, they don't run on like kind of one computer. Right, on one big computer. They actually have a scalable system, and like as more demand grows, they can like kind of find more computers to run on. And so this is done by so-called sharding, right? So you actually split the work and do it in parallel. And so this is not something that is done at kind of normally in blockchains. Most of the blockchains are not sharded. They do not process anything in parallel. Or like if they do process in parallel, it's still kind of within a very, very limited scope. And our approach is sharded, and kind of we built kind of first like production work in sharding with all the pieces that needs to be done on the kind of underlying level. And that's what allows to kind of not just have low fees, because it's really easy to have low fees when you start because you don't actually have usage yet. Like Ethereum had low fees when it started as well. But the goal is for us to maintain low fees as like we can hit, any amount of usage, right? With like ideally billions of users in the world gonna adopt blockchain by pretty much scaling underneath this users, the underlying blockchain. And then obviously the kind of designing consensus for like 1 second fidelity have been the challenge.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much allows to like, really, we call it the streaming consensus, and so it allows to really kind of speed up everything and still have all the same properties that other consensus, which usually like take 6 seconds, for example, take.
No, great information, and that's really exciting that you did build a video podcast, spoke to the developers and the founders of these other blockchains, and got the insights, and then took all that to build Near protocols. So I think that that's a great approach to it. And I'm guessing that part of the transaction fees and the processing throughout the network of Near protocol, and possibly for the Dapps that we spoke about, require some interaction with the Near token. And I need to make sure that we get to talk about the Near token because I think it's an integral part of the ecosystem. And I'd love for you to touch on, what are the main functionalities of Near right now and its main use cases, and does it create a sustainable ecosystem for the Near protocol?
Sure, yeah. Near token is integral part, and kind of for blockchains in general, right? The token is almost like a bloodline that like puts it all together and makes it work. Yeah, so Near token has 4 kind of properties or that kind of compose it. One, it it is used as a security. So the Near protocol is proof of stake, and as a validator, as a hardware provider for the system, you need to have this token to stake it to really provide Sybil resistance, meaning that we're not going to have infinite number of these validators pretending, and also to make sure that they are indeed not malicious. The second one is transaction fees. So yes, when you send a transaction, you are paying in Near token, or it will be converted in Near token equivalent, and we're actually burning most of the fee. So we're actually burning 70% of the fee, and I'll explain in a second why. The 30% actually goes to the contracts that were used in this transaction, and this actually creates a business model for specifically contracts which are utilities for other contracts. So let's say you build some library or some other functionality, and maybe it's not end user functionality yet. This actually provides you with a business model on its own, because you're accruing percentage of the fees.
Very cool.
So the third one is storage. So storage on blockchain is actually the most expensive thing that exists, because the transaction processing itself is a temporary, right? You process it and you're done. But storage is something that you need to maintain over a long time. And so Ethereum, for example, the current economic model is not sustainable. They actually just changed parameters for the Berlin hard fork to make it a little bit more sustainable. But they actually have had a growth of storage where people don't actually free it up. And this is same as Bitcoin. Most of the states are very non-sustainable and lead to potential issues. And there's also a very loose coupling of economic parameters around that. So we actually use storage staking, where you actually need to keep some amount of Near token on your account or a contract account to cover for storage. So as you use more storage, the more Near gets locked in that to prove it. You can think as a simple mindset is a minimum balance that you need to maintain on your banking account, right? But the more data you want to store, the bigger the minimum balance. And the fourth one is obviously it's financial operations, right? So as DAXs and other applications are growing, and we already have few which are locking Near and issuing some other assets like leveraging, loaning, or doing stable coins. This becomes an important piece of the system as well, where pretty much you're storing value in that and then reusing it in other places. So this is four integral parts. And so what this allows to do specifically is the transaction fee burning. The way it works is validators receive for staking and providing hardware and running the blockchain, executing transactions. They receive inflation, right? So there's fixed percent allocated to these validators while we're burning all the fees. So as more transactions happen on blockchain, actually the total inflation starts to reduce, right? Because we have a fixed reward to validators, but the number of transactions grows. And so there is actually a threshold at which the amount of Near will start decreasing, because we're still paying fixed percentage to the validators, but we're burning more Near in transaction fees. Obviously, this is at a great scale of Near network, but that's one of the goals is actually you can have this system where Near network becomes deflationary.
Very cool. And I think that was something that Ethereum recently introduced as well to, and
they're working on similar, I mean, some of it, their ideas, to be clear, but they have not actually decided to implement this specific plan yet.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all of that explanation. That really helps understand the ecosystem altogether. And we are running short on time, but I'm curious, I'm guessing as you continue to grow, you're looking for more developers to build dApps, validators, participants in the ecosystem. Is there anything specifically else that you guys are interested in, areas that you're growing, and how can all of these parties learn more?
Yeah, for sure. Well, for learning more, definitely go to near.org. And there's a lot of content and education materials, and also ways to participate from what we call guilds, which is our community of communities, to apply for grants and other ways. I mean, I think developers and people who want to kind of be early adopters of the systems and kind of come in and start using some of these applications and really participate in the economy that's been built. Like from our belief is kind of, the first few things will be a kind of this more creative people coming in and building out new things, right? Either through building applications or building, art, music, all those things kind of on top. And then really bringing in the mass adoption through kind of new content, through new interactions and experiences. And so really welcoming more creators, more creative people to come in and really explore what they can do with these new primitives, and really kind of create new world right with us.
That's very exciting, Illia. All the best with Near Protocol. I will definitely be following it along, and let's follow up in the near future.
Thank you, Ashton. Thanks, everyone.